The voice that ordered Superman to kneel is gone forever. Terence Stamp, the mysterious British actor who turned a working-class London youngster into one of cinema's most memorable villains, died aged 87, leaving Hollywood with secrets it may never understand. Those penetrating blue eyes hid a fascination with spirituality, a tale of fame's darkest corners and the true cost of legend. As war clouds gathered over Europe in the summer of 1938, something strange stirred in the small terraced house on Canal Road, Stepney. On July 22nd, the world saw the birth of a legend, unaware. Young Terence Henry Stamp breathed in a world built to confine males like him. However, those piercing blue eyes were already rebellious. Thames-weathered tugboat skipper Thomas Stamp never believed his son would frighten Superman. Ethel, his loving wife, held the unearthly baby that neighbors would talk about for years. Even though the East End of London was no place for dreamers, young Terry seemed to exist outside of post-war Britain's drab reality. Working-class boys found refuge in the neighborhood movie theater, a mystical portal to adventure and romance. Terence was pulled to something deeper, while other kids played in bomb-damaged structures. The secret formula that turned ordinary people become movie gods and monsters. Young Maurice Micklewhite, later Michael Caine, was his childhood pal and remembered those days with terrifying clarity. Terry had this presence as a child, Caine remembered decades later. Walking into a room changed the air. He appeared almost otherworldly, like if he was designed for something greater than us. But fate presented itself during a school rendition of A Christmas Carol. As the ghost of Christmas yet to come, 12-year-old Terence found a power that would elevate and torment him for the rest of his life. The ability to make people feel dread, want, and amazement with only his presence. He observed in a makeshift costume as his audience was captivated by his pointing finger and penetrating gaze. Transformation began. The Stepney lad tasted something intoxicating and addictive, sheer attention-grabbing power. Between the gasps and whispers of his riveted audience, Terence Stamp realized his fate lay not on the Thames like his father, but under the brilliant lights that could convert people into legends and legends into gods. Terence Stamp sacrificed his identity to enter the Webber Douglas Academy of Dramatic Art. Here, where Britain's theatrical elite were forged, the Stepney working-class youngster would either become great or be destroyed by his ambitions. Young aristocrats with refined accents and casual confidence were the Academy's residents. Terence Stamp, rough around the edges, entered this sophisticated milieu, his East London accent betraying his poor roots with every utterance. He had raw, indisputable skill and an almost terrifying passion to his work, making up for his background. His classmates recall him as a mysterious, intense figure. 6 decades later, classmate Jennifer Morton is awed that Terry never entered a room. Even during morning tea, he entered. He always seemed to be watching, always recording gestures and expressions for later. We knew he was different, destined for glory or destruction. The brutal training stripped away all pretenses to reveal the performer's true self. Stamp refused to change his working-class accent, even though voice trainers worked hard. Even then, he knew that his flaws were what made him stand out in a field full of polished, replaceable leaders. His actual potential emerged in movement class. Under the tutelage of Dame Patricia Hayes, Stamp weaponized his tall, thin figure, turning every motion into a weapon of seduction and danger. He was learning to act and command, which would help him defeat the Man of Steel. The last showcase performance introduced Terence Stamp to the world with terrible clarity. Stamp chose a bold, revealing monologue while his classmates chose safe, crowd-pleasing ones. Iago from Othello. He played Shakespeare's most complex villain with riveting, compelling, and unnerving intensity, a foreshadowing of the evil he would later convey to screens worldwide. The leaders of British theater and film were in the audience that night, and many left thinking they had watched something exceptional. The Stepney lad died that evening, and an actor who could play any role replaced him, however noble or wicked. Before a career spanning continents and decades, a job would change everything. Old Hollywood trembled in winter before new voices, faces, and dangerous truths. 24-year-old Terence Stamp entered this changing world with raw talent and a firm belief in his future. Even he couldn't have guessed that his first major film would vault him into international celebrity and garner him an Academy Award nomination, declaring him a legend. Billy Budd was more than movies. Peter Ustinov's visionary film, based on Herman Melville's melancholy tale of innocence corrupted by a world too evil to fathom, was a masterpiece waiting to happen. Billy, The angelic sailor whose purity of heart destroys him needed an actor who could play both divine innocence and tragic nobility. Hundreds of applicants believed they could match Ustinov's excellence. Stamp had never seen a psychological audition that stripped away every veneer to reveal the bare essence. Something changed in the air when he entered that room. Ustinov would vividly recall the moment. When Terence entered the door, I knew my hunt was ended. Not just reading the lines. Become Billy Budd. Melville seemed to have summoned this young guy from his eternal novel. The role needed physical and spiritual development. Stamp dipped it. Miss Elf immerses herself in 19th century naval life, climbing rigging like a pro and tying nautical knots like a pro. More significantly, he needed something exceedingly precious and dangerous, pure innocence that the modern world seemed to destroy. Stamp was forever changed by filming on the HMS Belfast. This youthful newbie effortlessly commanded every scene, impressing co-star Robert Ryan, a film veteran. I've worked with legends, Ryan told a journalist, prophesying. What this youngster has is new to me. His speech isn't merely dialogue. He dwells absolute truth. Billy Budd premiered to rave reviews. Stamp's portrayal made him one of the world's most sought-after actors, according to the New York Times. The nomination opened possibilities most performers only dream of while setting unreasonable expectations. Hollywood was calling, screenplays were coming in, and the Stepney youngster was caught in a whirlwind that would define and change his incredible existence. At the center of London's mid-1960s revolution was Terence Stamp, no longer the hesitant young guy from Stepney, but the live embodiment of swinging Londo and wildest nightmares. He appeared on Vogue and Esquire covers, reflecting an era's changing essence in each photo. The world didn't realize that behind those famous blue eyes was a wonderful and scary metamorphosis. Stamp became one of cinema's most captivating and dangerous actors in William Wyler's 1965 film The Collector. Stamp had never before created a character like Freddie Clegg, a deranged young man who kidnaps and imprisons a lovely art student. Freddie was obsession, a figure so complicated that playing him would permanently scar the actor. Billy Budd was innocence. Stamp's role preparation became an obsession that acquaintances subsequently called unnerving. He spent weeks meeting with psychiatrists and criminal psychologists, delving into predators' minds with the same painstaking approach he used in naval history. Samantha Eggar, his co-star, noted his terrifying dedication decades later. Terry's presence throughout The Collector was unsettling. Even between takes, his eyes made you question where Freddie ended. Terry began. He charmed London with more than his performance. He became a cultural icon completely. Stamp represented mod, a distinctly British trend that embraced crisp tailoring, continental refinement, and rebellious grace that seemed to ridicule class divisions. He and supermodel Jean Shrimpton were London's most gorgeous and mysterious pair, photographed at art openings and Rolling Stones gigs. David Bailey, a great photographer, claimed Stamps had the most photogenic bone structure I'd ever seen. The camera loved and was seduced by Terry. Every viewpoint revealed fresh mysteries and dangers beneath that gorgeous surface. Those closest to Stamp saw something worrisome underneath the glamour. Joy's success seemed to isolate him, making him dangerously close to his compulsive characters. Friends noted his growing demand for control and fixation with perfection in his performances and carefully managed life. Modesty Blaze, 1966, a pop art show tailored to Stamp's beauty and menace, capped this phase. He played Gabriel, a flamboyant villain who was both seductive and terrible, like a fever dream come to life. Critics were split, audiences were captivated, and Stamp had created another iconic character that would stalk popular culture for decades. Terence Stamp basked in the admiration of swinging London, but those who knew him well understood he was yearning for something more than fame could deliver, a meaning beyond stardom. A truth behind his apparently gorgeous facade. Terence Stamp should have seen The Collector as merely another hard role to perfect before moving on. But those rigorous weeks of production changed his acting style and relationship with reality. Who knew that Stamp would open a door in his mind that would be nearly impossible to close by becoming Freddie Clegg, the obsessed butterfly collector who imprisons a young woman. Stamp had to explore obsession psychology deeper than any actor should because to the technique approach to the character. He investigated genuine kidnapping and imprisonment cases, interviewed doctors about predators' thoughts, and finally understood the horrible logic that motivates someone to seize and control another human. However, comprehending became occupying, which became a psychic possession beyond the film's set. Those who worked with him said he carried Freddy's psychological mark after the cameras stopped rolling. With apparent anxiety, script supervisor Margaret Thompson recounted decades later, Terry would arrive on set already in character and wouldn't fully emerge until hours after we wrapped each day. It was as if Freddy Clegg had moved into his consciousness and refused to go. Despite our anxiety, no one knew how to help him. The similarities between Stamp's actions and his character's obsessions were evident to his friends. His London residence became a well-curated success museum. Every surface clean, every object located with military precision. Visitors regarded it as a shrine rather than a home, beautiful, perfect, and without spontaneity or warmth. His relationship with Jean Shrimpton, once the fairy tale romance of swinging London, manifested his interior brokenness. Friends of the couple noted Stamp's growing drive to dominate his environment and people, a psychological pattern that resembled Freddy Clegg's possessive bond with his hostage. Performance and reality were merging in ways that would last. Stamp started studying Eastern philosophy and spirituality during this mentally stressful time. Gurus gave him a framework for comprehending his mind's dark places and a way to psychological restoration that orthodox treatment couldn't. However, his spiritual quest nearly destroyed his career at its peak. Stamp's fanatical perfectionism made photography sessions marathons. Terry O'Neill, who snapped some of the era's most iconic photos, worried as basic photo assignments took up afternoons. Terry scrutinized every shot, dismissing dozens of great images for mental defects. It felt like he was chasing an unattainable perfection. The psychological toll of playing such a horrific character while retaining his gorgeous movie star image caused an internal rift that would affect every subsequent role and relationship. The Stepney lad who dreamed of celebrity found success to be a gorgeous, golden prison that suffocated the soul. Terence Stamp accomplished what most performers hoped by the late 1960s. Critical acclaim, international renown, and a captivating film presence studios want. His friends watched with worry as success devoured the spirit it was supposed to nourish. Hollywood's hidden truth was becoming brutally obvious. Sometimes being a legend means losing yourself. Not Antaeus, a single dramatic event, but the gradual understanding that his life seemed like an elaborate production with no intermission broke him. Every public appearance, interview, and photo was planned to maintain an image that was becoming more detached from his inner reality. Stepney Boy disappeared under stardom. Terence Stamp longed to find him. Agents, managers, and industry insiders were alarmed when one of their greatest talents voluntarily withdrew from the entertainment industry. The renowned Swifty Lazar, Terry's agent, remembers his unreasonable demands. His readings included big studio film scripts. I philosophically opposed characters other actors would murder their mothers to play. It was like watching a graceful professional suicide. His real and urgent search for purpose brought him from London ashrams to Indian monasteries, Zen meditation centers, to gurus whose wisdom claimed to explain the secret celebrity had only exacerbated. Terence Stamp disappeared from public life for nearly 2 years, haunting the industry that spawned him. Correspondence showed a man struggling with issues beyond work. He wrote to a close friend, "I wonder if artistic truth is incompatible with commercial success or if I lack the knowledge to balance both. Every job I get feels like a betrayal of something I can't identify but must safeguard." Devastating irony. Hollywood had moved on without Stamp when he had the depth and intelligence to do his best performances. He was replaced by new actors, and old colleagues rose to his position. His old friend from the East End, Michael Caine, was becoming one of the industry's most bankable stars. Their parallel careers now diverged like pathways in a forest, one leading to sunlight and the other to shadow. Stamp returned from his self-imposed exile different, perhaps more centered but more estranged from the world he had ruled. Even the entertainment world that welcomed him back was altered. New performers treated him like a relic from the past. The former face of swinging London was cast in secondary roles in films that barely registered with spectators or critics. Despite its anguish, this wilderness experience taught him something significant. The realization that even the best performance could never truly portray human experience. When fate gave him another opportunity at immortality, he would need all the skills he had learned in his years of quest, every insight obtained through suffering, and every method mastered in solitude. One name appeared on casting directors' lists frequently in 1977 as producer Alexander Salkind constructed his massive Superman film project. They didn't envision Terence Stamp as General Zod, his later nasty role. He was supposed to wear the red cape and be the Man of Steel. The screen test that followed revealed not only what Superman might have been, but what Hollywood wanted in heroes. At 39, Stamp had everything filmmakers wanted in a suit. Classic heroic sculptural features, height and bearing to convince audiences of superhuman power, and theatrical qualities that set him apart from other action heroes. Many still considered comic book amusement, but Richard Donner was attracted by the idea of casting a real actor. A mythic interpretation requires someone who can communicate vulnerability and godlike authority. Auditions were unlike Stamp's previous experiences. He was supposed to embody Superman, stand in ways that suggested invincible, and talk with the authority of someone who could modify reality with his bare hands, not just recite speech. Following years of studying the psychological complexities of wounded people, portraying pure heroism was both refreshing and daunting for an actor. Lynn Stallmaster, the casting director, later shared the director's delight about Stamp's. Terry turned unearthly when he wore the cape and looked at the camera. His nobility elevated the idea. Not just an actor audition. A mythical figure was born. Stamp reportedly delivered Superman's most iconic dialogue with Shakespearean seriousness, turning comic book adventures into profound remarks about power and responsibility. Much of the screen test film was lost to time and studio neglect. His Clark Kent was similarly captivating, a dual identity masterclass that hinted character depths other performers might never accomplish. The part went to Christopher Reeve. The production would suffer for this decision years later. Director Richard Donner addressed the complicated casting decision. Terry was amazing, but his Superman turned out to be dangerous, not evil, but powerful and scary. We needed audiences to trust our hero. Terry's version had unsettling edges. A less confident performer may have been heartbroken by this comic book immortality near miss. Stamp used the experience differently. It restored his confidence as an actor and piqued his interest in epic roles. More importantly, it showed Hollywood was ready for his refined intensity. Just find the proper role. Industry insiders saw the irony. An actor whose career had stalled due to his high artistic standards suddenly showed interest in a big-budget film, but was too complex for the job. But fate, as always, had other ideas. Perhaps Terence Stamp could become something more noteworthy, if not Superman. The ultimate Superman foe.